Welcome to Always On CXCX, the show for contact center and IT leaders. Between helping support your contact center reps, your customers, and the tech that makes your contact center function, you're relied upon quite a lot. Can't afford for your customer experience, agent experience, or stability of the contact center to falter. So in this show, we talk through how you can continuously improve your customer experience, your employee experience, and everything in between. If you're ready to find the next strategy to keep your customer and employee experience always on, let's get into this episode. So today we have Manoj Priyankara, Director of Solution Architecture here at AudioCodes, joining us to detail the architecture and design behind building a modern Microsoft Teams contact center. So let's jump into the conversation. Manoj, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Pleasure to be here, guys.
Yeah, glad to have you. Glad you can make it. I know you're joining us quite early, so appreciate that.
No problems.
Yeah, cool. So what do you say we just dive right into it? We got a full list of talking points here today, especially around the architecture and design. I know a lot of people asking about that when it comes to the Microsoft Teams contact centers. But the first topic I kind of want to go over with you is, we have contact centers that can be built in or on top of Microsoft Teams. And then you have a standalone, or the opposite of that, a standalone contact center separate from a traditional UC. Wondering if you could provide us with a little bit of an overview of the difference between a contact center in Microsoft Teams versus what a traditional contact center setup would look like.
There's a lot we can talk about, but I'll stick to a couple of major ones. The first one is the UCaaS and CCaaS consolidation. With typical contact centers, what you have is a different platform. There's a different administrative staff to manage the contact center, and typically the IT department looks after the UCaaS side of things. From the platform or the architecture perspective, the organizations will have to use two different platforms for UCaaS and CCaaS. I think the most important thing is the business, how you can use the platforms in business. Because typical contact centers are separate or isolated, it's not easy for the organizations to use the contact center features across the organization. But when you build a contact center on top of Microsoft Teams, in this case, we are talking about the world's mostly or widely used UCaaS platform. So you're technically extending the contact center or customer interaction handling management functionality across the organization, which is a big proposition. The next point is the platform or the architecture. As you know, building a contact center is not just developing a piece of software that supports customer interaction management functionalities. You have to look at the availability of the platform, reliability, how many nines you can support, extendability. Do the vendors have access to new things like AI? Can you bring in AI? How easy it is? That sort of things. Also, the security. Is the contact center built on a secure platform that can actually support enterprise security frameworks, that sort of things? And most importantly, we are talking about sometimes multinational companies, MNCs. Does the platform span across the world? Do I have presence in my country, my region, and that sort of thing? So the platform where you build the contact center is very important. So traditional contact centers, they have sometimes their niche or proprietary type platforms that you can use maybe on top of cloud. But what Microsoft has done is amazing. So they have extended Azure Communication Services, or ACS, for the certified contact center vendors to build their contact center on top of that. So if you're not familiar with ACS, so ACS is the platform where Microsoft Teams is built on. So we're talking about a platform that serves more than 320 million daily active users. Yeah. And if you saw the Enterprise Connect announcement, they actually now committed to 5 nines. And you don't have to think about the security, because most of the enterprises actually use Microsoft security framework. So we are talking about a platform proven, running every day across the world, that we build the Teams contact center on. So that's the main difference, the platform. The third point, I think, Josh, is the security. This is like, manageability and the security. So if you're talking about an enterprise that uses Microsoft Teams, so their security framework is actually aligned with Microsoft security framework. For example, they use Active Directory for identity management. You might have, conditional access. You might have different user groups to separate people based on the functionality. You might have role-based access, all sort of things that you already have. Now, when you have the contact center built on top of Microsoft Teams, what does that mean is you just extending the same framework to the contact center. So from the administrator's perspective, you actually not need, two different teams to look after contact center and the UCaaS side of things. Mm-hmm. We can keep talking, but I'll stop here and then go to the next question.
Yeah, totally. It's always nicer when you have one team managing multiple softwares versus two different teams managing two different softwares. That requires people to have to talk to each other. I'm not kidding. Like, I'm joking from people talking to each other, but people having to share projects, having to work cross-functionally, especially when it's comes across anything related to software. It can sometimes be difficult because they don't always talk to each other. I mean, the software is on that side. So you kind of set yourself up for potential failures, essentially, in the future, right? I wanted to ask a follow-up question. Just I know you're pretty well versed in this, but do you know if unified communications and contact center have they always been separate, and the trend now to having them both in combination, is that a new trend, or has that been a thing in the past as well?
It has been a thing in the past, Josh. The requirement was there, but the technology was a barrier. People actually couldn't integrate. There was minimal integration, like presence-based routing and that sort of things, but nothing other than that. Basically, a SIP trunk between the contact center and the UCaaS platform, and then some complex integrations on the CTI layer, to connect two applications together, but they are very complex. In my past, I've seen such integrations, but you're talking about like 6 months to 1 year integration time if you had to do that.
Oh, wow.
Even for the minimal requirements.
Okay, so that's pretty lengthy. A lot of things change, especially in business, when it comes to 6 months to a year. Okay, good to know. So I had another question related to this topic, and that is, can you think of a reason why someone would choose to have a Microsoft Teams contact center and those two combined versus just a UC and a standalone contact center, or vice versa?
Yeah, again, we can talk about many things, Josh, but I think the main driver for that is from the business perspective, you're actually getting the entire organizations to help customers, right? So you can pull people from backend, could be subject matter experts that actually the contact center specific people need help from. So how easy to pull them into your conversation, and also how easy to pass the context back and forth. I think that's a big business proposition. I mean, we can talk about technical things. You can manage easily. You can use the same security framework. I think it's more because the customer experience is a key thing for the organizations that serve customers. How far you can go inside the organization is very important, and how easily you can go. So that's a big thing when take a decision on using the UCaaS platform for the customer interactions.
Yeah, I had one that just came to mind of an example of that could maybe be for a university where someone is calling into the contact center for a university, and they have maybe some questions around like registration for classes, or maybe what I remember I used to ask this. like details on specific majors. So I guess an example of that, based off what you're just saying, could be a student calls into a contact center at a university. The contact center connects them or brings into the call, say, like an academic advisor. And all of that happening through Teams versus it being in two separate, like the
100%.
contact center and the UC separately, right?
Exactly. Yeah, a good example. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we touched a little bit on the way that typically a Microsoft Teams contact center can be built, and especially what's been more popular now is, especially with Microsoft Teams being built in Azure and contact centers for Microsoft Teams being able to be built in Azure alongside that, kind of sharing the same bedroom. I want that seems to inherently add to the flexibility and scalability within Teams. So how does Microsoft Teams accommodate flexibility and scalability for contact centers that are built within Teams, especially during times of like peak periods of spikes in demand of people calling in?
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. I'll actually take this in two aspects, so business-wise and technology-wise. So from the business-wise, as we briefly spoke before, it's the ability to bring people based on, if you have, for an example, if you have a seasonal, demand where you have a higher influx of traffic that you want more people to help with, so you can pull people from the back end because there's no barrier between the contact center and the UCaaS. You can pull people easily from the back end to support the high demand. So that's one thing. Another thing is actually the ability to automate things, things like virtual agents. So if you have when you build the contact centers on a proper platform like Azure Communication Services, Azure, etc., you can integrate with AI, where you can actually build some intelligence quickly. You don't have to spend months building something. You can define a call flow, for an example, to serve some repetitive tasks. So that's another aspect. From the technology perspective, Josh, obviously these are microservices-based architecture, so they're actually cloud native. So you don't have to really think about the scalability because this is elastic. So if you have more demand, the contact center application will expand, and then to save resources when you don't have much demand, they'll actually shrink. So they're all scalable on the cloud. So technically they are like unlimited, right? So that's the beauty of building a contact center on the right platform like Azure Communication Services, and also things like Microsoft Azure.
Okay. So if something is, say, not built on the cloud or maybe within Azure, there would be a limited capacity, I guess, for the amount of users that could be on there. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There will be limited. You might have to uplift, might have to spin up servers, bring up new instances, configure them depending on how much you have automated. But in cloud, actually, because they're microservices, they actually just expand.
Yeah. Okay. So if a contact center was not, say, flexible or scalable, I know we can intertwine these words. What would happen like during peak demand or really busy times? Would calls just drop, or what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's a size that the contact center is built for, right? So different things can happen. So you might actually drop the additional calls. That's one thing if you have a ceiling. Or actually you reduce the voice quality or the quality of the interactions. There may be delays, there may be bad voice quality for the callers, that sort of thing. So it's really depending on the design, but yeah, basically the customers and the business is impacted.
Yeah. So in turn, bad customer experience.
Right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's not what you want. So this seems like it could fit really well with a company that sees a lot of demand, say during, trying to think of a busy time here, the holidays, the end of the year,
Yeah.
very busy time of year. A lot of gifts are purchased, a lot of gifts are returned during that time. So that would qualify, you think, as like a peak period?
100%. Yeah, the Christmas time, especially in Australia during the Christmas time, the delivery companies, or could be Australian Post, get a very high influx of traffic. Or it could be an emergency situation where actually people try to call, a certain organization. Could be a launch of a product where you get more calls. So yeah, I mean there are situations, and this is a requirement, to be honest. If you want to run business that way, there are situations actually the contact center needs more call handling and interaction handling capabilities.
Yeah, definitely. So you think that a contact center, a Microsoft Teams contact center, it sits really well for those types of situations?
Absolutely. And actually, Josh, we didn't touch this. I mean, we didn't talk about this much, but the customers also have to look at the availability of the platform across the world. Do I have the right regions? So I have the optimal voice quality. Is my voice quality or my voice paths optimized? Are they local? Do I talk to a local POP, or am I talking to a POP in Europe from Australia? That sort of thing. So it's also very important that customers think my contact center vendor, where have they built this platform on? Is the platform scalable? Is the platform available across the world? So those sort of things also are very important, because these days people can build software easily. It's just a matter of selecting or looking at where they are built and how secure they are, how wide they are.
So how much impact does a contact center being local have on the security of the contact center?
Right. So one of the key things, Josh, is the data location. So certain countries have regulations on where the data is, configuration data. If you go to India, for an example, there are regulations to keep data in country, especially the media in country. Some regulations in China, for an example, how you handle data. So the localization and the presence locally is important that way, for security. You can't just store data anywhere you want in the cloud. There are regulations in countries where actually you have to. That's one of the key things. But when it comes to security, like if you use a standard or a acceptable security framework, I think we can handle the authentication, identity management side of things. But where data is kept is important, and that's why actually the locations and the availability is important.
Okay, good to know. So I want to switch directions here a little bit and talk about the contact center design within Teams, more specifically to things like omnichannel and customer engagement. So, in your expert opinion, what ways does the design of a Teams contact center assist the implementation of omnichannel communication and customer engagement?
Excellent question, Josh. I know there are certain Teams certified contact centers, and then the vendors can either build them on ACS because they have the opportunity, or they can actually tightly integrate. I'm talking about the contact centers built on Azure Communication Services, which is Microsoft's code platform. So ACS not only supports real-time interactions like video and audio, it also supports other digital channels or modalities like email, web chat, and it also has access to third-party connectors. So for example, if you want to bring in social media as a channel, the vendors have the capability of integrating or bringing them in a more scalable, secure, convenient way. This is very important. Like not like in the past, the requirements change daily. So the contact center vendors need a platform that actually they can bring in features quarterly, monthly basis.
Yeah.
So Microsoft Azure Communication Services and the rest of the Azure framework is a heaven for contact center people to build the contact center platform. So yeah, absolutely. So if you build the contact center on the right platform, ACS, and also using Microsoft, the rest of Microsoft microservices, you're actually on the right platform to bring in other channels, give more or better experience to the customers.
Yeah. That goes back to what we were talking about earlier of having everything in one place is always very nice. So, with there being the ability to add additional channels directly from Azure, what are some of the other channels that a contact center should bring in after they have established the voice channel?
I think one of the most important thing is email, because people interact with emails, asynchronous, web chat, and then the new generation actually, the social media, things like even WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, that sort of things. Yeah, those will be the key channels, I guess. In addition to, once you have the voice capabilities built in, and then this will be the next ones.
Yeah. What's your personal preference on how you reach out to a contact center? Which channel do you use?
Yeah, so from my personal perspective, I actually like web chat.
Yeah.
That's maybe because of the work I do. Maybe I'm actually doing something else, but I need something less urgent that I want to follow up with someone, and then actually I prefer web chat.
Yeah.
And if it is really urgent, and then I might call, but I think my preference is web chat.
Yeah. What's it like? I know you're in Australia for everyone who's listening, Manoj. Um, what's the experience like with contact center agents in Australia? Is it generally really good? Is it sometimes difficult? What do you see?
From the quality of the conversation perspective, it is actually good. It's good customer experience in Australia, especially because I think most of the contact center vendors and most of the cloud providers where the contact centers are built on, they all are present locally.
Mm.
So if you look at Microsoft, they have a couple of Microsoft regions, two for general public, and then a couple for the government. And then AWS is present, and then Google is present, and all the popular contact centers actually have POPs in Australia. So quality of the conversation is better. There was a trend where some of the Australian organizations actually move the contact center functionality offshore, but in recent years actually they were brought back. So yeah, in general, customer experience is good in Australia.
Good. I'm happy for you. I'm also web chat. I enjoy using the web chat. It feels, more like texting as well, which is, a lot of people our generation are used to growing
So.
up texting as well. And it's usually a pretty quick response without having to, if you know I've children at my house, so sometimes it's a little loud. So being on a voice call can be a little difficult to hear what the agent might be saying. So web chat is normally the way I go, versus email. Sometimes I don't want to wait, for the response, where
Yeah,
web chat seems more uh, quicker, I guess. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I did have one more question here. You have many years of experience within the contact center, especially from an architecture standpoint. Um, do you have any insight or an example of like what does good user interface look like for omnichannel versus maybe a bad user interface? And we're talking from like an agent perspective. Could you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. One thing is the simplicity.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like personally, having a cluttered screen with, too many different things that I don't necessarily need to, need for that transaction. I prefer having only the required information on my screen as an agent, so I can have more focus. The simplicity is one of the most, for an example. So what happens if we have, I've seen this actually, some people have, too many screens opened on the computer, and then when they want to find something, they struggle, like, spend minutes trying to find closing things, computer gets stuck, that sort of thing. So I think it's very important. This is again for the contact center vendors, to simplify the agent screen so they have a peaceful mind, and they just provide the required information to handle this transaction, not everything, so that's an important thing for me.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's a great thought. Simplicity is always nice, especially when you're kind of on the spot having to answer a question, and sometimes a difficult question from maybe a customer who is not very happy.
Exactly.
So yeah, simplicity. Love it. All right, so we're moving on to kind of our last topic here. If it's not consolidation of contact center and unified communications, then it's probably AI being the hot topic, and automation, especially within the contact center. So, could you maybe elaborate more on the role of AI and automation within a modern architecture of a team's contact center?
Sure thing, Josh. I think we can talk, a couple of hours on this, but I'll take some examples, and I'll focus on three different areas. So customer experience, agent experience, and supervisor and administrative experience. So if you look at the customer experience, I'll take two examples. It's very easy to take examples for general public, general people. So as you know, traditionally, when we call a contact center, we have these DTMF menus. So you have a limited set of options that you can select by pressing a key on your phone, for an example. And what happens is, most of the time, so I call a contact center, and then I'll be given, like, 3-4 options, and then I can't find an option that fits my requirement. So most of the time, actually, you select the last one, like, anything else.
0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then it actually goes sort of to a best effort call queue, and then longer waiting times, and then when the agent receives the call, agent doesn't have any context why this person called me, so you have to explain your situation again. It's not the best customer experience, right? But with with conversational IVRs, which is a functionality of AI on contact centers, the customer can actually explain the situation. And then when the contact center has this feature, conversational IVRs, the contact center can use the natural language understanding, or NLU, and natural language processing, NLP, to understand the intent or the reason why the customer called. And then the AI can actually find the best call queue, best team to serve this customer, or even actually the best person to answer this question. So customer gets direct access to the best person available at a given time. The other thing is, from the agent perspective, in this scenario, agent can actually get an insight of why this person called. Even what I explained, agent can actually see on the screen, for an example. So it gives a better agent experience as well as better customer experience. Another example is virtual agents. We have many repetitive tasks that we do every day. Could be a password reset, could be checking the status of a shipment, that sort of things, where you don't necessarily need human agent, which is as human agents are expensive, and then limited in availability. So if you can do things automatically, like using a bot or something like that, so this is where the virtual agents come into picture. So you basically build a virtual agent that can serve password resets, or checking a shipment, that sort of thing. So better customer experience, because customer doesn't have to wait. It's like purpose-built, quick way of getting things done. From the agent perspective, Josh, one of the things is how we can help agents. So agent assistant. For an example, I'm an agent taking a call. I sometimes have to refer to some documentation, read through documentation to help my customer. So I might have to pause the call and then read through the documentation. Or it may be that I have to go to a different CRM or system, find the information, and then handle the call. But with virtual agent assistance, what you can actually do is the bot or the AI built into the contact center can passively listen to the conversation and then provide insights to the agents in a summarized way. So you don't have to go and look for information. So the interaction is seamless, better customer experience, better agent experience, right? Because you don't really have to go through documentation and that sort of things. Another example is summarization or wrap up. So when an agent finishes a call, the agent has to wrap up the call, like write a summary, update the CRM, that sort of thing. It takes like a couple of minutes for an example. With AI, especially with conversational AI plus generative AI, a hot topic, generative AI these days. So you can actually nicely summarize the conversation and then provide a neat summary of the conversation on the side to the agent. So agent might be able to tweak a couple of things and then quickly update the CRM or the backend platform, improving agent experience. When it comes to supervisory experience, we can talk about a couple of things. One is the sentiment analysis capabilities. So the AI, when you have built-in AI capabilities, if you have sentiment analysis, you can actually analyze all the calls, and then you can actually understand the sentiment of the callers, whether actually they were happy, that sort of things, to improve the contact center capabilities, so the experience. You can also monitor the agents, like are the agents greeting properly? Do they talk the right words? Do they give the right experience to the customer? So basically, improving the agent side of things too. Another aspect of AI in the administrative functionality is the resource planning. Looking at the past, how agents were, at what time of the day, what time of the month, that we need actually more agents to handle certain type of calls, that sort of thing. So when you have AI, it's easy to analyze the past data and then give insights to the supervisors to plan the resources. And even, things like are agents overly used? Do they need more breaks? That sort of things. So it's basically resource planning side of things. So we can keep talking, but I think, Josh, these are the key things on AI, how AI can support the contact center. This is not necessarily specific to Microsoft Teams contact centers. This is more general. But when it comes to Microsoft Teams, the vendors actually have these features, at fingertips to bring in.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That was amazing. So much stuff that you can do with AI, especially built into the contact center. And to your last point, where Microsoft, just kind of being at your fingertips. So with the AI that's in a Teams contact center environment, where's that coming from? Could it be a third party? Would it be Microsoft Cognitive Services? Where would that typically come in from, you think?
Technically, you can actually bring it from anywhere, like from a different cloud provider, etc. But Microsoft has it available already, on the Azure platform or Azure cloud. So why would someone bring in some other AI? So I would actually go with Microsoft AI, because this is they spend millions, billions, if not on developing AI, things like Copilot, that sort of thing. So there's no reason for someone to actually look for other AI providers, but you have the capability of bringing other AI too. But for Microsoft, I would go with Microsoft AI.
Yeah. Again, to that point of all in one place. Why would you not?
100%, yeah.
Microsoft has it all. Last question here for you. Do you have any future thoughts or trends that you see related to AI in the contact center? Curious.
Yeah, I think we are still like, we've seen this in paper, in theory, Josh, but I haven't seen, much use of even things like conversational AI. People are still using DTMA, for an example. So I think the first thing will be to prove, we can use these technologies. This work, right? So people use this, right? It's just the adaptation of existing technologies. I think that's the next step. Getting people to use. I think this is what I think, right? So the organizations still sometimes are hesitant to use, for an example, conversational IVR or virtual agents, because it actually impacts the customer interactions. I think we have to, the organizations will absorb these technologies in real life. But I've seen a trend on agent assist, because that doesn't impact the customer experience. The customer doesn't see that agent is using assistant. So I think that's an area where people will jump on straight away. In terms of future, who knows where the AI is going? But I think the large language models, generative AI, the things you can do is limitless.
Yeah, that was a good thought on conversational IVR versus agent assist, and how one impacts the customer while one impacts the agent more, and how it'd be easier to implement the one associated to helping the agent that doesn't impact how the customer engages with it. It seems a little bit safer almost, and less
100%.
involved as far as how it could impact your brand or your customer experience. Definitely.
100%. Yeah.
It's a great point. Well, Manoj, you've touched on quite a few things. I mean, everything from how Microsoft Teams contact centers differ from the standalone contact center, how to take on peak periods of demands, and building within Azure, omnichannel communication, customer engagement, AI. This is so good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Always On CX. If you've got one thing you can use to improve your customer employee experience, we'd appreciate if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. If you're interested in improving your customer experience by using Microsoft Teams as a contact center, consider trying Voca for free for 30 days. Just voted the best Microsoft Teams contact center by CX Today. Voca brings to Teams the most critical contact center features for providing a great customer service in the main service desk and departments beyond the contact center without the hefty price tag or the nice to haves. Just Google AudioCodes Voca or find the link in the show notes. Thank you again for tuning in to this episode of Always On CX and EX. We'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.